welcome to this week's Virtual Discovery Day. My name is Chelsea and I'm a master's student in the Fisheries and Aquatic Science program at the University of Florida's Nature Coast Biological Station. When I'm not studying for my master's degree, I also work full-time with Florida Fish and Wildlife's Fisheries Independent Monitoring Program. So my thesis project is actually a collaboration between UF and FWC focused on the effects of oyster restoration on fish communities. Now, since the NCBS station is still closed, the science must go on, so today I'm going to share with you some of my research.
For those of you who haven't visited our building, it is located in Cedar Key, Florida, which is a small island town about an hour west of Gainesville on the Gulf Coast. This area of Florida is also referred to as the Big Bend region of Florida. It's also called Florida's Nature Coast because it includes some of the most undeveloped coastlines in the continental United States. Cedar Key is an open estuary, which means it has freshwater input from nearby rivers such as the Suwannee River and other smaller tributaries. As you can see, the salt marsh habitat has vast expanses of marsh grasses and oyster reefs at the mouths of creeks and tributaries. Oysters are very important in the salt marsh ecosystem and provide several ecosystem services. They protect shorelines from erosion, filter nutrients from the water and improve water clarity. They also taste delicious and support a multi-million-dollar fishery. And finally, what we're most interested in for our study is they provide habitat and feeding grounds for fish and invertebrates. Despite their ecological importance, oyster reefs are also one of the most threatened marine ecosystems in the world, with an estimated 85% decline in global populations. Oyster reefs face threats such as overharvest, boat traffic, dredging, pollution, disease, reduced freshwater discharge, which can also increase predation and reduce recruitment, and in some areas with flood control systems, large freshwater discharge events can cause mass mortality. Although the Big Bend region of Florida and Florida's Nature Coast seems pristine, uninhabited, and mostly unaffected by human impacts, it is not immune to the threats oyster reefs are facing. Lone Cabbage Reef, for example, was once a natural offshore oyster reef that covered 3 linear miles and was located just north of Cedar Key and just outside the main Suwannee River Delta. As you can see from these photos, Lone Cabbage Reef and its neighboring reef, the Great Suwannee Reef, have suffered decline since the early 1980s. Since 1982, Lone Cabbage Reef has experienced 77% reef loss, and the Great Suwannee Reef has experienced 100% reef loss during this time. This decline has largely been attributed to decreased freshwater discharge from the Suwannee River, which is thought to increase predation and then cascades into the dead shell eroding away, not leaving anything for the juveniles to settle on. Now, it's not all bad news. In 2018, the University of Florida was awarded $8 million to restore Lone Cabbage Reef to its historic length and elevation, using limestone boulders covered with clam and oyster shell. The restored reef now consists of 22 reef elements and spans its historic 3 miles in length. The PIs for this project were evaluating the success of the restoration based on the oyster populations. However, this may also restore some of the other ecosystem services that I mentioned before. So my project is going to be looking at the effects of this oyster restoration on the fish and invertebrates that use the reef for refuge and feeding grounds. We did this using FWC's Fisheries Independent Monitoring Sampling Protocol. We pulled a 70-foot seine net along the edge of the reef. This net has very small mesh to catch juvenile and small adult fish. We then identified, counted, and measured the fish and invertebrates that were caught in the net. We also collected water quality data at each site. We sampled 6 sites each month before, during, and after the restoration construction. So we have about 9 months of pre-restoration data and a little over a year of post-restoration data. Right now, I am analyzing this data to see what differences there were when comparing pre- and post-restoration. Some of the cool things that we caught were some of these juvenile sport fish. Can you name any of these popular species?
Thank you again, you guys, for joining us. And if you have any questions, please comment in the comments below.